Feel your feet on the floor and pay attention to your breath. And take one of those really big, deep breaths that goes all the way down. And blow it out and just stay in that place of being in touch with your breath. God, we thank you for moments where we can pause and catch our breath, either literally or figuratively. And God, we use this time and space together to do just that, to be in touch with our breath, with who we are, and God, who we are as a community, and yes, who you are. And God, we rest in that great word that we just sang, that your grace is in fact enough for us, for all that we carry, for all that we face. And so with great joy, hope, anticipation, we turn to you in these next minutes to hear from you, to be challenged, to be encouraged, and to do it together, all in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, friends, finish the phrase for me, would you? Dun, 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 dun. The grass is always greener on the other side. Indeed. All right, that's all I'm going to say. So today we are doing this, here we are, here we go. It's kind of a moment to stop and see who we are and where we're at as a community, and also look at where we're headed. And I want to start with this, the grass is always greener on the other side. It's a sentiment that's been around for a long time. And what came up for me as I was thinking about it was in our first year of marriage, Jason and I, we were living in the Bay Area of California, and we headed up for the day to the Point Reyes Lighthouse, which is north of San Francisco, and it kind of dangles out on this point, like out in the Pacific Ocean, just beautiful. And so it's like really out in the middle of nowhere. So to get there, you're rolling past all these farms and kind of like open space, and we're turning around this corner, and there's this cow that's gotten out of its like fenced-in area, and it's just going to town on this usually untouched section of grass. And without like missing a beat, Jason's like, man, the grass really is greener on the other side. And I was like, ah. We laughed, it was cute. We were newlyweds, it was a great moment. So this whole idea, the grass is always greener on the other side, there are many ways in which we consciously and subconsciously hold this sentiment as true. Ways in which we ultimately stay restless with what we have and also with who we are. One of the classic ways that I see it playing out is with women and in regards to our hair. Have you ever noticed this? Oh, I wish I had curly hair like you. I wish I had straight hair like you. Oh, I wish my hair was thinner or thicker. It's like we're always kind of like wishing for the other thing. Grass is always greener, right? Like that's that kind of, man, I wish I had that. But the way I want us to engage with this sentiment that the grass is always greener on the other side is how it pertains to the gifts and skills and opportunities and capacities that we have compared to what we see in others. Oh, how I wish I was as funny and playful as Jimmy Fallon. I mean, right? Like I just wish I could get up on Sunday. It's just like, hey, you know, or maybe you're someone who wishes you had like the wisdom and poetry of Maya Angelou, or like whoever it is. And it's not just famous people, right? I think more frequently we see it in the folks that we're close to. Their dynamics that we see in our coworkers, our colleagues, our family, our friends. Just those moments where we go, oh, I just wish I had that. Because who here hasn't wanted to be like known as the funny friend or the brilliant friend or the whatever friend, right? Like we get into that space where we see that the grass is greener on the other side. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Okay. So I want to run with this a little bit, and as I do, I invite you to stay in touch with this in a very personal and direct way. So holding really this question of where are the grass is greener areas in my life? Like where are the ways in which that flares up for you? Because I think we have our own tendencies around that. Essentially, what I'm asking you to pay attention to is where do we have envy in us? And to be really open and honest about that in ourselves. So as you may have heard, or as you may guess, the scriptures, the Bible, speaks quite a bit about this in different ways. I mean, we could look at Proverbs, we could look at the prophets, in Jesus' teaching. Perhaps, though, no place else is it more frequent than in the Apostle Paul's writing. I didn't actually count it, but I just know that he talks about it a lot. And the way that Paul does it, which we'll get to in a moment, just to say a little bit about Paul. So Paul, in the years following Jesus' death, Paul's like the main guy. And he's helping to start churches in various cities. places where folks can come and start to live this life of Jesus, because the good news of Jesus, it really just spreads like wildfire after Jesus' death. And it's also, Paul's also involved just intentionally mentoring other leaders. So he'll go into a town for a while, he'll train up leaders, and then he'll move on to other cities. But in his absence, he's so good at keeping in touch. You know, I think about how easy his job would be if he could have been texting that whole time, right? But he's so good about it in that he writes letters, right? And so most of the New Testament consists of Paul's letters to these new communities of Christians, which is just fabulous for us because we essentially get to eavesdrop on these conversations and understand the dynamics of those communities based on the things that Paul is addressing in those places as the life of Jesus is just growing exponentially in that region. And so what we see many times in how he does this, how he writes, how he addresses issues, is that we see him talking a lot about envy and speaking to that. And he does it in a way where he comes back again and again to making these lists. Maybe you've seen the like spiritual gifts lists. It's like he names all these ways in which people have been wired differently, talents. And he says over and over again, God has given you unique ways to be in this world. Be who you are. Don't want someone else's life. So our reading for today is one of those places. It's from Romans 12. And so it's the book of Romans, which means he's writing to the church, the Christians in Rome. And we'll pick up right after Paul has used a familiar image where he's made this point about the body of Christ. How all the believers, all the folks who follow Jesus are like different pieces of this body. Like, hey, you're the eyeball and I'm the ear. And like we all have different roles to play. And like we need every piece. No two parts are the same. And we need all those pieces in order to function. So he's kind of used that image for us. And then we hear this piece. So this is one of those list places again, but it's limited. It's a finite list. So don't think that like, wait, I don't see myself on the list. It's finite. But again, as we hear this, hold it as words spoken into our own places and times and moments of the grass is greener. All right, where's Danny? There you are. And Mike is there. Awesome. So Romans 12, it's the Message paraphrase. I think it's verse 4 through 8, but it might be 5 through 8. It's hard to tell sometimes where they break up that particular version.
In this way, we are like the various parts of a human body. Each part gets its meaning from the body as a whole, not the other way around.
Start right there.
Awesome. But, no. Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
So at the so, right
so,
there. Yeah.
So. But so, yes, and.
Again, yeah, okay.
And again. So, since we find ourselves fashioned into all these excellently formed and marvelously functioning parts in Christ's body, let's just go ahead and be what we were made to be, without enviously or pridefully comparing ourselves with each other or trying to be something we aren't. If you preach, just preach God's message, nothing else. If you help, just help. Don't take over. If you teach, stick to your teaching. If you give encouraging guidance, be careful that you don't get bossy. If you're put in charge, don't manipulate. If you're called to give aid to people in distress, keep your eyes open and be quick to respond. If you work with the disadvantaged, don't let yourself get irritated with them or depressed by them. Keep a smile on your face.
Yay! So you can hear it in there, right? The be who you are. Don't want someone else's life. To say what Paul is saying here in another way, and really what I want to use it's a quote that I want to use as really the bottom line for today, is this quote in a moment. Jesus, the Apostle Paul, Paul, throughout Scripture, this is what we really hear over and over again. Celebrate what God has given others. Leverage what God has given you. You can celebrate what God has given you too, but I just love this. Like notice, celebrate what God has given others, but leverage what God has given you. How are we going to use who we are and what God has given us? Because we can't change who we are, the gifts that we have. I mean, we can certainly grow and learn and heal and change in that sense. But I think the best posture that we can take in this life is to leverage what God has given us. Ladies with curly hair, leverage those curls, my friend. Find the product that works for you. So I invite us to hear this again, speaking into the very real ways in which we struggle with the comparison trap, right? With envy. Longing for what we don't have. Longing for someone else's life. So please continue to hold it that way. And yet what I want to do with the rest of our time is take this incredible word and apply it to us as a church here at Salt House, as a body of particular people in a particular place at this particular time with particular gifts. Here's the thing. We are still a new and intimate community. And it would be very easy for us to play the comparison game about who we are, right? To say, oh man, we don't have like 100 kids here every Sunday in a bouncy house like the church down the street, or like whatever the thing is. It'd be very easy to play the comparison game about who we are. But oh my goodness, there's so much that we do have, right? That God has given us here in this building and this property that we have, in all of you, the folks that make up this place, and the gifts that are here, and the opportunities that we have to be a very real presence in this neighborhood and this world for the sake of the kingdom of God. And so today, this time that we have, I want us to hear about how, as we enter into the fall season, just some of these beautiful ways in which we are leveraging what God has given us here at Salt House. And we'll do that by hearing from 8 different areas of ministry very briefly here at Salt House. And we'll do it, again, it's a finite list. We could talk about a lot more, I'll say that. But in each of these areas, you'll hear at least 2 things. You're going to hear an update, so some information about what's going on, but then also an invitation, ways in which we can be involved and see how we can be a part of these things as we move into the fall. And so I would invite you to really listen with that in mind. So like make note of things, pay attention to any curiosities that come up for you, any nudges that come up for you about, I want to find out more about that, or maybe step into that. The question is, how might you leverage who you are as a part of Salt House leveraging who we are and what we have? Because we are a new, intimate community, and how we leverage what God has given us here at Salt House is through all of us leveraging what God has given us individually, right? So I'm excited. We're going to rip through these updates, and I think like me, you'll feel energized and blessed and challenged by all of it as we go through it. So first, we're going to start with stuff that happens here kind of on Sunday mornings as a community connecting with each other and with God. So let's start with a little talk about worship from Jason.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning again.
I've already seen you. This is great. So I think of Sunday mornings as sort of the typical public offering of any church. Like usually Sunday morning is when you would expect a church to happen. And as you may have noticed, we are still here on a Sunday morning. We talked about shifting to the evenings again because we started there, but we decided to keep with the morning, partly because of feedback from our community, but also because we feel like it's something we haven't really tried yet for this season. So we're intentionally, strategically thinking, okay, we can try the Sunday morning thing in the fall, because we haven't done that yet. And that doesn't work for everybody, and we understand that. And we are a church, and we can't actually meet everybody's needs. And part of it is like wishing we could, but we really can't. So we have to be intentional about how we position ourselves and move kind of in our community. And Sunday morning we felt was a great opportunity for us to try this. So that's part of why we're staying here. The other thing about Sunday mornings being sort of the public offering is we have a great desire that Sunday morning, this time that we share together, this experience of community and worship, would just hum. That it would be something that when you come, you're like, oh, this is a great place to be. And it's also one of those things when you leave, you go, I feel energized and renewed for the day, for the week, for the season that I'm in. Part of what we experience when we share in communion and we sing these songs together and hear a great word is the power of God moving in and through us in ways that we can't just do on our own. And that's the value of doing it together as community. So part of that, of course, is having people available to make Sunday mornings happen. And so part of it is actually just a request to say, hey, if you're able to help make Sunday mornings happen, whether it be setting up communion stuff or being part of the music or the arts or helping with the kids or whatever it is, whatever you can do to make Sunday morning hum, leverage that. And let us know and be part of the great thing that's happening here at Salt House.
Cool. Thank you.
Any other things that you can think of?
I mean, we talk a lot, but
yeah,
that's
I wrote some notes down and I didn't say any of them, so.
Well, you'll have the microphone again later.
I will,
if you need to say something, you can always do that. I do think, like, particularly for folks who feel really busy, I think being a part of serving in some capacity on Sunday morning makes a lot of sense, because then you're not trying to fit like an additional time somewhere else. Like, it's a really great way to be to serve, but also you connect with people when you do that. So yeah, Sunday morning's a great a great way to do that. So cool. So that was worship. I want to also on Sunday mornings, I want to talk a little bit about Salt House Kids is our next thing. Ta-da! So Renee Connor and Michelle Beebe are our two amazing folks who head up this ministry. Michelle is currently back with our kids. Renee's not here today, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Salt House Kids just to let you know where we are at with that. So we want our kids to learn about Jesus in a way that is fun and relevant and easy for them to understand. We want them, honestly, more than anything, to leave, every time that they're here going, gosh, I felt loved and cared for and had a really good time. And then also, to be able to sing a song about Jesus and, tell Jesus' stories, great. But, to really experience love and community. So that's really the hope. So Salt House Kids, just to give you an idea of just numbers and stuff like that, we have 5 to 7 kids on average, ages 2 to 7 years old. And they're, tucked at the end of the hallway. That's where they go in this awesome room that I would like to play in because it's really fun. But in that time together, they have a Bible story and craft and lots of playtime. And beginning today, this is kind of a new thing for the fall, Michelle and Renee are staffed and planning to provide time for the older kids to really have space to themselves, to really have some conversation and Bible teaching for the elementary school aged. So that, they already have the Bible story happening, but to really be more intentional about creating space for some of those older kids in the room. So they're excited about that as we move into the fall. And again, Jason mentioned it too, it's with the kids is a great way to serve as well. Whether you're able to help periodically on a Sunday and just be back in the room, awesome. But there's also planning games or crafts or serving in other ways. So just let me know or let them know if that's something that might be on your radar. We do train and background check all of our volunteers who work with children. Also when it comes to kids, I do want to say, and I hope it's obvious, that kids of all ages are welcome in worship, right? All the time, everyone is welcome here, be comfortable. I feel like we make that kind of space for people, so just know that. And the first Sunday of the month is particularly that time that we set aside, we're going to do some fun things, because kids are going to be in here, so always the first Sunday of the month is that time, especially to really emphasize how we value the participation of families and kids. So heading into the fall, we're poised with we're still asking some good questions about how to experiment, discover how to best serve our kids and families, but that's just a little bit about where that is currently. So if you feel that nudge, we'd love your help. All right, next little area is we're going to hear from Nancy Westman. So Nancy, come on up. Dun, 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 dun. So Nancy's going to talk about meals, food here at Salt House. We started this community when we started, a central piece of our identity of who we felt called to be was to be people who eat together. And so that was just a central piece. God, when it comes to leveraging what we have, food was something that we needed to leverage as a community. So that's something that has always been important to us. Jesus did it, we do it, and Nancy has really been central, really, in making that happen. So we're thankful for her spirit of hospitality, and just, she's always looking for more cooks in the kitchen, so she's going to talk to us about meals.
Hi, my name's Nancy Westman, and I am part of a great kitchen crew, and I'm loving that not only that there's probably 50% of my crew is guys, and
that's so awesome.
It's so awesome, and keep bringing it on, because it's really wonderful to have so many different people involved. And you can be involved by either showing up in the kitchen and helping prepare things for our first of the month meal. We also have Genius sign up, so you can sign up online for a particular menu that we have, and you can just sign up. And you can participate as little or as much as you want, and you just prepare this meal at home, and then you bring it on to Salt House, and we give it all for everyone to eat. And the next meal that we're going to have will be our potluck meal. That'll be next week. And we've got a few things going on. We've got the New Bethlehem project will be starting, and I believe there's 80 people that have signed up to participate in the training for the New Bethlehem project. So there's going to be the possibility of a lot of people coming to our potluck meal. So I would hope that you guys will bring some fabulous food as usual, and they may come for the service, they may come for the potluck, they may just come grab a bite and then just head into the training, but I think we need to be aware that they're going to be coming into our facility, and we need to show them our wonderful hospitality here at Salt House. So remember that for next week, and looking forward to that. We have a couple of different things going on for October. October will be football, so mashing it up with our Oktoberfest.
So October 2nd is a 10 a.m. Seahawks game, so we'll turn this time into, we'll have tables in here. During halftime, we'll do a 12-minute worship service. And so it's really about being community together and taking some time also. But it also is the first Sunday of the month, so it's our meal. So
yeah, and this will be our second Oktoberfest that we've had, and it's a great opportunity to have it with football as well. We're going to, okay, I'm just going to totally slice this. Peter is bringing, what are you bringing? Okay, Spätzle, which
so Peter is German.
Yeah,
and so,
from Germany. So he is going to bring us, basically, it's like our version of macaroni and cheese, except way better, I'm sure, because it's homemade. And so he will be making that and bringing that for the meal. We're going to be having our brats, which I hope the weather holds out and we can have the brats out on the grill. So that would be great. Sauerkraut, we're going to have German salads and probably pretzels, little apple strudel, so a really great meal. And you'll have that opportunity if you want to sign up for that meal to participate and take, make something at home and then bring it, or you can come into the kitchen and help us all make it for the meal. I think that is about it. I just know that I have this love for cooking, and I love bringing it to all of you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. So again, what Nancy's saying, so we have 2 meals, each month. First Sunday of the month, it's provided, but it doesn't just magically show up. People from within this community actually sign up. So if you're willing to be part of that rotation of actually making food to provide for that meal, in addition to potluck when we all bring it, please consider that. Also, set up and clean up always needed any given Sunday. So thank you for everyone, because we believe good and sacred things happen when we eat together. So thank you for all the ways in which we have made food happen together here, because good things have most certainly happened. So next, we're going to shift a little bit from Sunday morning specifically to one of the primary ways in which we build community outside of Sunday mornings. And I'm going to give you that update, and it's on Thrive Groups. So Thrive Groups are our small groups, a chance for folks to gather outside of the Sunday morning time in smaller groups for different reasons, for regular study, prayer, conversation, and encouragement, listening for God's movement in our lives. At Salt House, we believe that life happens in circles, not in rows, right? Like, this is important. We need to be together in worship. That's a vital part of who we are. But life really happens when we gather together, not in lines, but in circles, right? So that's part of why we gather for meals. So again, these Thrive Groups are one way in which those circles are formed where life can deepen. So I want to just share with you and be a bit transparent about my journey this week. So my process, up until Wednesday of this week, I was sculpting the plan for what Thrive Groups would be for the fall and launch them here. And but then through conversation and prayer, it really just all changed, like it does. Thanks, God. So it became quite obvious that we're not ready to launch Thrive Groups right now, because there's work to be done to prepare the leadership for our groups, as well as the leadership for our wider community as well. And so we're going to launch Thrive Groups in January, which feels like an eternity from now, but like on the other side of the holidays, because really, like, once we hit mid-November, like everyone's out. So in January. But here's the thing, there's so much work to do between now and then, and it's so clear to me that the thing that God is inviting us to pay attention to invest in, to grow in, is the development of our leadership here at Salt House. So it feels like a very strategic and important move in following God into that. So it just feels right. And so for this fall, there are other ways for us to connect as community. So I want to just name 3 quickly, lest you fear that you will not find community this fall at Salt House. Just talking about what Nancy just said, like being here for football together, and just like, there are events like that. So first, we will have events like that, and like meal nights together, and pub nights, and just other events. Next week's Goodbye Summer Barbecue is one of those times. So show up at those times and leverage those times as an opportunity to form those meaningful connections. So second, we will have an opportunity to commit to our text and practice. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, it is reading a text, a little passage of the Bible and a devotion each day. So that's text number 1. And then text number 2 is then sending a text message to a small group of other folks, just a 1-sentence response about something that spoke to you or a question that you had. So text and text. Get it? Okay. So it's just a beautiful way, again, to connect with others, to hear what others are hearing, but also to connect with God, to have a kind of discipline in your life around spending time in Scripture. So we'll have sign-ups for that in 2 weeks. And so third, finally, and frankly, I just want to name, like, y'all have power to build community here together, right? Like, we're not launching this formal program this fall, and yet reach out to others, form a group for the season, or, we've talked before, we hold this value around the 3-meal challenge, looking at our week and saying, okay, I'm going to have at least 3 meals, coffee dates, beers, whatever, like with other people at a table, at least 3 times this week, like outside of the people that I would, like from my household who I would eat with anyway, where are those opportunities where I can connect with others? So 3-meal challenge is a really great way to hold that as well. So those are just a few ideas to nurture that deepening growth and connection in faith and with others. Again, this was a really, really hard call, a hard decision for me to make this week, but I feel really great peace and excitement that we're being faithful to doing the slow, intentional work to be ready to leverage what God has given us within this community. So for those who are interested in holding a leadership role, like the folks that we're hearing from today, or if you'd like to lead a Thrive group as we head into kind of that winter season, reach out to me if you haven't heard from me yet. We're going to get that group started the first week of October. All right, so we've talked a bit about Sundays and groups. We're going to turn our gaze kind of outward now to 4 more areas beyond our walls, to how God is leveraging what we have and who we are. So first up in this area is Kristen Trace. So perhaps the most poignant way in which we are leveraging what God has given us is in the use of our unfinished basement. Almost a year ago now, we voted unanimously to let that space become a day center to serve homeless families experiencing homeless. So it's in transformation right now, and Kristen's going to catch us up as to where we are.
Okay. I don't know if there are going to be words for you all, but
there will be words, but don't worry about which words they are. Just go.
Okay. First, I'd like to give the construction update. It's 40% complete. It's well underway. All the materials we have gathered, the cabinets, they're all been procured. They're sitting down there. It's really inspiring. So we are on target for a mid-October opening. So. Woohoo! That's exciting. There was like a shower housewarming campaign at Holy Family, and so they have these sheds and storage units that are overflowing with abundance. It's incredible. Towels and dishes and all the things that we're going to need to turn our house into a home for our guests. And it's just inspiring, and it just shows that there is a lot of energy around this project, and feel a lot of gratitude for that. Catholic Community Services has posted the jobs for our staff. We need to hire staff to work down there. So if you know anybody who would like a job, who is somehow qualified, have them apply. This is a great opportunity. It's going to be a very rewarding job, and we need great people there. Pastor Sara has once again just really blown everyone away on the New Bethlehem committee with her commitment and the openness that Salt House Church is showing to the day center. So we are going to open the shelter on Sundays, and that is huge for this community of people. A lot of times they're shut out of places on a Sunday, and to be able to open our doors and welcome them in and say, no, you're welcome here, is very powerful. So our new hours are Sunday through Thursday, from 2 to 8, yeah. And if we get more funding, then we'll open maybe on Fridays or longer hours or something like that. So speaking of funding, we are at about $475,000 raised. So incredible. We need $550,000. So we are underway to do a little bit more fundraising. Feel free. But also we have a volunteer position that we need somebody who has fund development experience to help guide us in this process. And if you or anyone you know, this is one of those times when you can nominate a friend. If you have a phone a friend that you could use on this, that would be great. Someone with maybe nonprofit fundraising experience, they could reach out to us, and we would love to just pick their brains, maybe get a little bit of their time so that we can continue with this fundraising effort. It's, like I said, have been incredibly successful so far. So we are all set to open, no problems there. Sometime in September or early October, there's going to be this moment when the contractor says, it's ready. And then we are going to have to swoop down there with paintbrushes and paint, which has already been ordered, so that's awesome, and paint the basement. And we'll have probably 2 days to get that done. And so we won't have a lot of notice, but when that happens, we're going to push out a bulletin to everybody and say, just come and paint for an hour with us and just see what's going on down there. And so just letting everyone know that that's coming up. And so that is a volunteer opportunity, very short, very fun, that will be coming up. But the last thing that I want to talk about is the volunteer orientation. So if you would like to volunteer in the shelter, you must attend an orientation. And after the orientation, you have to turn in this ridiculous 10-page application. But don't be daunted. It goes very fast. So far, the response to the volunteer orientations is overwhelming. The CCS staff who's been working with us is
Catholic Community Services.
Yeah. They can't believe it. They're mockingly calling us the program of abundance. Mm-hmm. So that just lets you know how this project just has so much heart behind it in our community and in the greater community. We have over 250 people signed up for various orientations. And the one here next Sunday is the last one scheduled, and it has 80 people already signed up. And so we would love to see you all. The reason why we scheduled it was here, so that, anybody who is interested, please come. Just stay after worship. It's an hour long, and find out more about the program and what volunteering looks like there and how you can get involved. I just think it's going to be really great. We're going to have food. And that always makes everything better. If you could remember to sign up online, that would be great. If you're a member of Solid House or our community, just come, just bring friends. Just don't worry about it. And so I think that's good.
Cool.
I think that's our update.
Thank you. Thank you. You can leave it right there, actually. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Kristen. I'm going to mention something that I plan to mention during the announcements. I'm going to say it now. We have two things. Out on the table there, we have the 10-page infamous application you have to fill out for being a part of the shelter, so you could come next week and have it completed if you would like. You can also download it online. The other thing we have, there's a sign up for next Sunday specifically for a number of volunteer positions. Another kind of core value that we hold here is that of radical hospitality, like wanting people to walk in the door and feel connected. Part of why we make each other talk to each other on Sunday mornings is we want people to have connection, and we want people to feel welcomed. And so next week we are going to have at least 80 people in this building that have never been here. So we want people to have an experience of being blessed. So we'll have worship next week, and then a brunch, and then this training event. And so whatever way in which you can be a part of helping make the brunch happen, helping clean up the brunch, being available to welcome people while we're finishing the brunch, there's going to be a lot of movement and people kind of coming and going. So if you're able to position yourself to be I'll be there, I'll help make whatever happen, please sign up to do that, and we would appreciate that as we leverage the warmth and hospitality that God gives us to those who come in next week. So take a look at that as you leave today. All right, thank you, Kristen, wherever you just went. Yes, thank you for all that you're doing with this project. It's been awesome. All right, our next update is also an area in which we are leveraging the physical space that we have. And this past spring, Levi's name there, I'm going to give the update, but I'll catch you up. You may not know Levi, but I'll catch you up, okay? So this past spring, we had our two visioning teams meet over the course of about 6 weeks. We had our Come Thrive team and our Go team, who really just listened, dreamed together. And one action item that came out from the time that the Go team spent together was to explore developing a community garden on our land, to benefit us, to benefit our community, to build community, to absolutely be a blessing for the day center as well. And so, but there were just huge questions about do we have the people power to do it? And we don't know how to do this. Does someone else know how to do this? And so there was this Sunday morning in mid-July And Levi and Kaylee Bilderback, who are sitting back there now. Hi, can you just, hi. So they've been coming, and they visited Salt House. They did the brave thing of saying, hi, we're new. And we were talking after. I said, hey, we have these raised beds, these gardens over here. We actually have some chard that's ready. Do you want to grab some chard? And they're like, what? Yeah, okay. And so we're like standing around our raised beds over there, and they were just talking about worship. They liked it. They asked about where the beds came from. I was like, actually, it was a woman named Lee from our parent congregation. She really made it happen. We're actually looking for ways to have enough people power to sustain it and maybe even do a community garden. And like everything got quiet. And like Levi and Kaylee looked at me, and there's like this moment. And Levi goes, I've been looking for a church to do a community garden with. And fireworks went off. Like it just was like, oh, like one of those moments of like, well, that was meant to happen. It just was like this very powerful, simple, beautiful moment. And so we're in conversation about what that might look like. But Levi grew up in a family of gardeners. Like he's interned in community gardens. Kaylee's in this amazing program at Bastille around medicinal plants and stuff. I mean, they just bring a lot. But they're also super busy. So to do this, they need a lot of people involved as well, and kind of asking the question, what can they really handle this fall? But there's huge potential to make this happen, and with great ideas around like they want it to be educational and have classes around things like cooking classes, like what do you do with the things that you have? So it's just amazing potential. So consider how you might be a part of the Salt House Community Garden. Exciting stuff. So stay tuned as a group begins to form around that community garden. So thank you, Levi and Kaylee. And I will say, I immediately said, I'm not going to sign you up right now, but that would be amazing. So anyway, so the conversation has continued. So next up we have Chris Moore, who's going to come up and talk to us another opportunity with our land, meeting the very real needs of our communities, an idea that I think most of us haven't heard about yet. So I'm excited for you to hear about the Little Free Pantry.
Okay, so one of the Go team ideas this last spring was a Little Free Library. And this is a little bit different from the Little Free Library. It was a small box that you'd put a lot of library books in, and people could take them in and out and leave a book, take a book. But the Little Free Pantry caught my attention when I started to look into the Little Free Library. And what this is it's a place where people can come 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to find canned goods, dry goods, or personal care items. And it's never locked. If you need something, take it. If you have something to give, leave it behind for somebody else. It's neighbors helping neighbors, and anyone can stock items in the pantry and take anything they need. I mean, truly it is anyone. If you're a kid on the way to Lake Washington High School over here and you forgot your breakfast or your lunch, grab something from the free pantry. So we're thinking that this resonates a little bit more with our core values here. And so instead of the Little Free Library, we're going to explore the Little Free Pantry. We want to help those in need, from our homeless day shelter and those struggling with food insecurity. So this is a way we want to make ourselves visible in our neighborhood as people who care. Let me know if you are interested in being a part of this, because we have some choices that we're going to need to make. We're going to need to decide on the size and the design of this pantry, the location that this pantry will sit on our property, and if you have like carpentry skills that you might want to help us build this Little Free Pantry, or maybe you've got a metal outdoor shed container that you've got in the back and it needs a new home, we will love to talk to you, and we'll figure out the logistics of how we're going to keep all of these foodstuffs nice and tidy and dry. So come talk to me, and Pastor Sara has my information, and we'll get started, okay?
Woo. Thank you, Kristen. Right there. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Another just fun, awesome thing coming together for the fall. So you may remember that finally, last up is Kim Saunders. You may remember that as we celebrated our 1-year anniversary back at the end of March, we also kicked off those intentional 3 months of listening to who we are, and that's what then we moved into the Come Thrive and Go teams to kind of do some work out of what the vision that was coming together. But also part of why we started that process was because of another big opportunity that came up for us. whether we might sell or long-term lease some of our land, which is a huge decision that is still in the works. And so Kim's going to give us an update on that.
Hi. So I love the fact that this discussion began with the grass is always greener because, it's actually the resources that we think about. A lot of times we think about who we look like or, the things that we are jealous or envious of in others. But in this particular area, at this particular time, one of the biggest places where sort of value and needs are playing themselves out is in this area of what do we do with the property, with the land that exists. And I'm not sure if you're aware, if you sort of pay any attention to what's going on in our area, but values of property are going up very, very fast. It's actually part of what's creating the challenge with the families that are experiencing homelessness because people are being pushed out of the places that they have to live. The affordable housing is much more difficult to come by. This is a profound problem for our area. And the good news is that there's actually public entities that are very aware of this. Our state legislator is aware of this, City of Seattle is aware of this, certainly the jurisdictions here, City of Kirkland, Bellevue, Redmond, et cetera, are all very aware of what's going on. And they're desperately seeking ways to help solve this in a big way, not just a small way. And so we're really excited that when we began getting involved with New Bethlehem, which was actually a project began by Holy Family, Kristen did a great job telling you all about that. That project's been going on for almost 2 years now. It was started by Holy Family, and their vision initially with New Bethlehem was that to really begin to address some of the fundamental issues around homelessness in our area. And the day center, when they researched it, they discovered that a place to go for people that don't have a place during the day was crucial. And so that was the first phase of that project, was to secure a location and then open a day center. And here we are. We get to be a part of that. We were approached by that. It was amazing how God sort of brought together the resources to do that. But it was only the first step in that project, and certainly only the first step in beginning to address this more broadly. When we were given the gift of this property and this building 3+ years ago, when Holy Spirit was, which is just up the street, was given that gift, part of what we were given was not just the building and the place where we're sitting here, but also the property on which it sits, which is almost a 3-acre lot. It's actually 2 parcels. Our property is divided into the parcel that the building here sits on, but we also have a parsonage, which is right basically over here, which is currently we rent it out. It's part of our income stream for Salt House. We rent it out to a private family and it's a separate parcel. So we have 2 parcels that combined are about 3 acres. We are located on a major bus line that goes right across here. You might be aware that it goes down on 80th, and of course very close to the high school. We have very quiet neighbors to the east.
It's true.
So we're actually at a very unique location, and the city of Kirkland, one of the challenges of dealing with this in a profound way, specifically for our east side families experiencing homelessness, is that as land goes up, it's harder and harder to find a place to put a longer-term, bigger solution. So the problem, that is a fundamental problem that the city's trying to address, and they essentially, when we decided to get involved in the New Bethlehem project and do the day center, we were then approached by the city that said, well, if you're serious about this, do you want to think a little bit more broadly? So we thought about it, we had a number of discussions about it, and said yes, we would consider the possibility of looking at ways to use this site, our property, in a different way to address this problem in a much more profound way. So we are at the very beginning of that process. Our hope, just to lay out where we're at with that, our hope is by the end of December, so we're just a few months away from making what we hope to be a decision about whether or not we want to pursue this opportunity. What that means is we think about that as having a couple options. One might be actually taking the parcel that has the parsonage on it and maybe doing a lot line adjustment to sort of extend the size of that parcel, so essentially divide up the current land into a slightly more even parcels, that one which we're on now, one which would be bigger, roughly a little bit more than an acre, to build a day center and 24-hour shelter as the beginning to address some of this, because the problem for homelessness is not just around the day problem, but of course the overnight where you live. And it's funny, I've learned about language. Shelter is actually considered the language about overnight, where people can stay. Day center is sort of the where people can stay during the day. So this is actually a project contemplating the combination of shelter and day center. So a 24-hour, 365 days a year kind of place where people can come in an emergency setting to find shelter and to find the things that they need, the services that they need. In addition to those needs, which are really profound and people are dealing with every day, trying to locate where these overnight shelters are going to be, literally churches today are housing this for a month or two, and so the people that are running those shelters have to figure them out, like month to month, where are they going to be, where they're going to be, hosted. This is a major problem, and it's very expensive for them to go about it that way. So dealing with that is one part of it. Beyond that, though, we really feel really strongly that addressing some of the longer-term needs are also crucially important. So it's not just the emergency services, but also low-income housing. So one of the things that we brought to the table in this conversation is our desire to have a conversation about how to provide supportive and long-term housing solutions for this area. And of course, that means more property, more land, and it raises more questions. And that's sort of the second option, one being the sort of smaller parcel, two being rethinking the entirety of our property toward the potential end of both a shelter, 24-hour shelter, but also potentially low-income supported housing that would basically be permanent housing. So people have a place to go, not just emergency-wise, but longer term. So those are the two options that we're really considering. We'd love to look at to get to a place where we have an intention, a solution, an answer at least by the end of December. To get there, though, there's a lot of information that we have to gather. We've launched a process with ARCH, which is the city, the housing. It's an organization that all the cities on the east side contribute to, and basically uses their arm to manage housing-related projects. And so ARCH has actually agreed to fund a feasibility study with us for this property. We already have contracts underway, and some of the work, if you actually walk around the property, you'll notice that the trees on our site right now have their little tags on them.
Yeah.
And that's basically part of the tree survey. We're doing a tree survey, we're doing a geotechnical assessment, we're doing a parking survey, which is sort of what involves traffic and what would be involved with that. We're also looking at what the soils look like, so a soil assessment. These are all sort of fundamental pieces of understanding the constraints of this particular site. With that information, then, we are working with a local architect to come up with what we call sort of a massing survey, which gives us a sense of how much square footage this site in these two configurations, either the partial or the full configuration, what kind of square footage it would support, and what, given the restrictions of the city code, et cetera. And so we're looking at all those things. We are hoping to have all the data collected by the end of September. These things are all underway now. The architect will then work with us over October, November to essentially come up with what the possible masses would be. It's not a design project. It's not what will this look like, what's going to be involved. It's more like how much space could it be. So we'll have both constraints. We'll have an understanding of how much we could support. And we'll also know something about the value of it, because, of course, the value of the property is a fundamental asset that we here at Salt House share, and we have to be smart about the way in which we manage that asset. So with the information about valuation, to be clear, this is not about a donation. We're not talking about donating a big part of our property. What we're talking about is converting that into a solution, selling essentially that to an agency, a sponsor organization that would then execute this plan. And that plan would then give us an asset, a financial dollars asset, cash in the bank essentially, that would allow us to support this ministry as it grows, but also allow us to make real the possibility of leveraging this asset that we all share as a community, which is this property, into a very high impact go opportunity, which I think we all share. I think that's it. I know it's a lot. Whew. Sorry, I know I didn't touch any of my words.
Yeah. Awesome, thank you. Wow, so conversations obviously will continue around that. Friends, isn't that a lot? That's even like all of the things that we could talk about. Isn't that amazing to hear what God is doing and how we're leveraging what we do have in this place? It is just awesome to me. Here's the thing though, we need everyone to be a part of all of these things in order to make these dreams realities, right? We need folks to be involved in order to have the people power, the prayer power, the power of God power to make these things happen. So I want to go back to where we started to finish that sentence for me once again. The grass is always greener. On the other side. So there's actually a different way to finish this sentence, and I don't know if you've heard it. Don't put it up yet. Okay. So I think this is what I would like us to hold for the fall. So you see, we have influence on how the grass becomes green. Whether we're talking about ourselves, like those very real areas in which we feel that sense of, but yes, especially as we talk about how green the grass will be here at Salt House. So today we name that the grass is always greener where? Where we water it. Right? So as we head into the fall together here as a community of people who belong to God and belong to each other and belong to the world, how are you going to water the grass? How will you leverage what God has given you after all we've heard today? I am so stinking excited to see what God will do with what we have. So let's continue to hold that question together. Friends, will you stand with me? We've been sitting for a while, so shake out your legs.